Your bitch want my boner. I took her on the counter, then I gave her hoe a bonus. Bitches want a bonus. We ain't too big to counter, but I will never own them. Talk to me, them.
All right, talking baseball. Just previews on the season. I've paid attention pretty well. I'm doing fantasy baseball this year. I don't normally do fantasy baseball. It's a lot to keep up with, and it's usually hard to find people that want to do it. And I'm kind of in a league with some like randoms, but they seem like they're gonna everybody's gonna do their team for the most part for most of the year. I only have one friend in my league, so I mean it's still fun. Like it's made me like pay attention to baseball a lot more earlier than I usually do. Like I usually just say fuck the first 2 months or whatever. So I've been paying attention to baseball. I mean, obviously I know what's going on. Like obviously I get caught up and figure out what's going on, but this year I'm like starting from the beginning and it's been a pretty good so far. I'm a big Yankees fan, so I'm really excited to see how they're going to be this year. And just talking about the American League, we'll start off with the American League. I don't know if I'm going to do videos and like segments like of each division, or it just depends on how long they are. I'm trying to make my videos a little bit shorter because it seems like nobody wants to watch long ass videos, and maybe people want to watch short videos. But anyways, let's talk about the American League East. Obviously, this is the division with the Yankees and the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles, and Rays. Let's talk about the Rays to start off. They're in total rebuild right now. They really are not. They're just team. They sold Longoria in the offseason, and that was that's tough. Longoria gone in the offseason. And they just, they were trading a lot of guys last year too. Tim Beckham, which not a huge piece, but another guy. They got rid of Souza. They got Corey Dickerson is now playing for the Pirates. So they just really kind of let their team go. I mean, when you think about their team, the main guy that they brought back was Kevin Kiermaier. And he's more of an outfielder type. He's not known as much of a hitter. Outfield, Carlos Gomez, another all right player. They've just kind of filled spots where it's like, let's it's kind of like let's make ourselves look like we might be competing a little bit, which they just really aren't. They're building a new stadium. I think they're trying to get out of Tampa, honestly. But Denard Span, another guy that he played for the Nationals for a couple years. I think he was a Twin for a while. He's a veteran at this point. And then they got I can't even say his name. Hitcha Valera last year from Miami, which he was kind of promising. He seemed kind of promising, which he just hadn't been that good there. Brad Miller. Has been a good player for them. He's probably going to be one of their best RBI guys. Matt Duffy, who missed all of last year with an Achilles injury, I think he came over when they traded Longoria. I remember him being on the Giants, I'm pretty sure. And then C.J. Cron is another guy that they kind of brought in from the Angels. He's the guy that played for the Angels for a number of years, and he's the first baseman. And then you talk about the catcher, Wilson Ramos, who's pretty good. Is a pretty good catcher. He's coming off of like an ACL injury that he had last year. I think early in the year around this time. So he's still kind of getting acclimated. He hadn't really found his power yet. But this is not a good team. They started the year 1-7. I don't see a whole lot from the Rays this year. The Rays are looking like back to their olden days of when they were really bad. Pitching wise, I like I like Chris Archer. Chris Archer's a good pitcher. And, Snell also, Blake Snell, he's a young guy, but Zilla is a good player. He's actually on my fantasy team. He's the only Ray that I had. I had Kiermaier at the first of the year, but I went ahead and let him go. He has only hit the ball maybe like 2 or 3 times, I think, in all his plate appearances. He's like a leadoff or second batter type guy. But I still have Snell. He's gotten a good amount of Ks. He had a tough start against the Yankees the other day. He played good against Boston early in the year, though. And then their catchers or their closers not that bad. Kolomi, he did give up a pretty tough. He had a pretty tough outing against against the Red Sox the other day, but I think he had 47 saves last year out of 53, so he's not a terrible player. Next, we'll talk about the Orioles. It's a toss-up with the Orioles and the Blue Jays on who's gonna finish fourth or third. Now, I will say Baltimore has played a good amount of like tough teams to start the year, and their lineup's really not that bad. So when you talk about the Orioles, they started off with against the Twins, and that was a tough series. That's a team that's considered as like maybe a playoff type team. Then you talk about they had to go into Houston, play the Astros, and I think they might have won one against the Astros. I can't, maybe not. I don't. Maybe not. Maybe they didn't. I don't remember. But the Astros were real hot to start the year. They've kind of gotten cold as of lately. Their offense isn't really going the last two games, but Baltimore's had a really tough schedule. Then coming into the Yankee Stadium, they actually are up 2-1 in the series right now against the Yankees. Had some good starts from Cashner and Gosman, which was surprising for them. So this team, we'll see what happens with the Orioles. I think, their pitching will kind of be all right, but I think, what mainly needs to happen with the Orioles is their offense has to really be good this year. And when you talk about their offense, Trey Mancini has looked good to start. He seems like an everyday player type guy. Tim Beckham, like I mentioned, he's playing third base. Machado's moved over to shortstop. I really like Machado. I don't, there's a lot of people that are on one side of it and on the other side of it. The people see the potential that Machado can have, and when he is playing good, he looks like one of the better shortstops in the league. But there's other times and there's things that he does that you're just like, man, this guy, maybe he's not one of those top guys. But anyways, in Adam Jones, who they have in center field, who's been there for a while, he's a really good player. Kobe Rasmus, playing right field. I think he might have gone to the DL today. And so Santander's been playing that. But then you talk about, Scope. Scope had a breakout year last year. This second baseman, shortstop is a good duo. And then, Chris Davis, Mr. Strikeout or home run, the new Adam Dunn. At first base, but he's kind of a shell of an Adam Dunn. Adam Dunn would hit a lot of bombs. We'll see what Chris Davis does this year. He started slow, hasn't been that good. A couple years ago when the Orioles were really playing good and they were a playoff team, Chris Davis was a guy that he might strike out 3 or 4 times a game, but that one hit that he had was going over the fence. So we'll see if he gets hot. It's real early right now. And then, designated hitters, they got Trumbo, which I haven't seen a whole lot of Trumbo this year. Maybe he's hurt. And then someone that's been playing really good against the Yankees was I think it was Alvarez. I don't even know how to say his name. Alvarado. Let me see what the fuck his name is, because I don't know why I'm going blank on his name. Oh. What's his name? He's not even on the fucking roster. But his name's like Perez. I don't know, Alvaro Perez or something like that. He's played for the fucking Pirates and shit like that. He had a pretty good series against the Yankees. They still have a game tomorrow. Blue Jays, the Blue Jays, they never really impressed me with their lineup. And, let's talk about starting pitcher for the Orioles. Now, the starting pitching is going to be real hit or miss. Alex Cobb they got over from the Rays. Dylan Bundy had a really good start against the Astros. We'll see if he can keep it up. Gosman, honestly, had a pretty good start against the Yankees. Cashner had a good start against the Yankees. And Tillman is kind of all over the place. He's definitely an older guy. and we'll see what happens with him going forward. They got a guy in the minors that's pitching pretty good. I could see maybe replacing him or maybe going forward. We'll see what happens with Tillman, but Tillman's definitely on the last end of that. So when we talk about the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays, talking about their outfield, Curtis Granderson, not a bad player. Then you got Kevin Pillar. Kevin Pillar is a really good center fielder. He really can cover a lot of ground there in center field. He can steal bases. He had a couple of good games to start the year. I actually picked him up on my fantasy team just because I was trying to get some stolen bases, and he was a guy, but he has not hit lately ever since I picked him up. And then Ryan Gerchuk, who used to play for the Cardinals, was a kind of a guy that he was kind of like the fourth outfielder. He would play some, and now he's kind of a starter. I think he could have a pretty good year. He's a guy that's kind of just he's been building his way up and playing a good amount of he's gone up, he's gone down. He's a good player though. I like him. And then you talk about they got what's his name? Steve Pearce, who I think is just about like their fourth outfielder. He'll play some. Not a bad player. He can play some first if they need him. But they have Justin Smoke. He's been actually really good for the Blue Jays. He's honestly probably their best hitter at this point. I know they have Josh Donaldson, and I know they have Kendry Morales. But, Donaldson's having some issues with his shoulder, and he's not a bad pitcher, but he's not a bad player, but he's definitely, not the Josh Donaldson that was playing for the Athletics a couple years ago. So, he's a good player, and, maybe he'll get hot, but he's not what he was. He's kind of a shell of what he was, just like Morales is too. They got Solarte from I think he played for the Padres before this, and he's been all right. He's been on base a couple times. He's scored some runs, I've noticed. And then they have Troy Tulowitzki, but I think Troy Tulowitzki's hurt. So Amadías Diaz is playing at shortstop for right now. And then Russell Martin catches. Osuna's the closer, not a bad closer if they can get it in that position to close games. And pitching-wise, Estrada is a pretty good pitcher. He pitched good 2 nights ago against the Rangers. Stroman, another good pitcher. J.A. Happ is good at times. Sanchez is an all right pitcher. And then Jaime Garcia, who used to play for the Cardinals, is another guy that they have on their pitching staff. So this is a mediocre team. I don't think it's a playoff team. I think this is a team that is better than most, maybe, 70, between 60 and 70, maybe 75 wins. They'll be talked about throughout the year, but I don't really see this team having enough firepower to really make a playoff spot. Then you talk about the Red Sox. Red Sox have started really hot. Now, let's not forget that they've played some of the worst teams in the league. When we talk about they played the Rays to start the year, and then they've played the Marlins, and then they're playing the Rays again now at home. The Rays almost beat them 2 days ago. They killed the Rays today. They almost beat the Rays 2 days ago, or almost lost. They were down 2-0, and they had a good comeback. They got the Yankees coming up, so we'll see how that goes when the Yankees – I think they play the Yankees on Tuesday to start that series. They got the Rays one more game tomorrow, which is Sunday. And this is honestly a pretty good team. Benintendi out in left field, really good player. I really like Benintendi. He had a really good rookie season last year. He definitely could have been a rookie of the AL Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for Aaron Judge. Jackie Bradley Jr., more known for his center field ability than his hitting ability. A good player, Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is a good right fielder. They like Mookie Betts out there. Xavier Bogaerts had a huge day today. He had a home run and a double. I think he had about 6 RBIs. I think he hit a grand slam, actually. Pedroia is hurt right now, and so Eduardo Nunez is playing second base. He's kind of like – he's a guy that'll fill in, whenever one of these guys needs a rest day. Mitch Moreland Hanley Ramirez plays first base. So Mitch Moreland used to be kind of more first baseman. Hanley Ramirez would play DH, but since they added what's his name, JD Martinez has kind of taken over as that designated hitter, which deservingly so. He is a good designated hitter. And then Rafael Devers, a guy I actually have on my fantasy team. I like him a lot. He showed promise in the second half of the season last year, had some good hits. So he's a guy that I like. He's a guy that I'm happy that I have him at my third base position. And then their catching situation has always been shit ever since they lost Veritek, Sandy Leon, and what's his name, Christian Vasquez, which are all right catchers, nothing to write home about. This is definitely a playoff team. Brock Holt also, you don't want to forget about him. He's a guy that can fill in at different places, play outfield, shortstop, second base, third base. He plays a lot of different positions, so he's kind of your Zobrist of the team. And then Chris Sale is definitely the man for the Red Sox. When he's on the mound, that's pretty much a for sure win, or you're going to get a quality start out of him. Rick Porcello, he's up and down. Cy Young winner I think 2 years ago. He's a guy that he loses his stuff, he finds it. He's been on a lot of good teams in the past. We talk about he used to play for the Tigers, now the Red Sox. David Price has honestly looked pretty good. Now we'll see if he can sustain that. Pomerantz is another good pitcher. And then Eduardo Rodriguez, Erod, I think is going to get the start tomorrow. He's probably their fifth starter on the year. So this is a good team, got a lot of balance throughout the lineup. Alex Cora, definitely he wants to be better at running bases this year. I know, and so we'll see what happens with them. Let's talk about the Yankees. Now the Yankees obviously have a stacked team. If you're asking me today, who's going to play in the ALCS, I would say Yankees versus Astros again, which I don't really even know how the Yankees made it last year. I can't believe they came back and beat the Indians the way they did, but they did, and they actually played, the Astros pretty well in that series. Pretty happy with that. The one thing I will say that I hate about this team is Aaron Boone. I don't think Aaron Boone at all deserves to be a manager, and definitely, in a time period where the Yankees really have a chance to get a championship, I don't think Aaron Boone was the move. I don't think a rookie manager was the move at this point in the year. At this time in the Yankees franchise. But this team is absolutely stacked. Gardner, Hicks is hurt right now, but when Aaron Hicks comes back, that's going to be a good player. And then backing him up, Clint Frazier, Jacoby Ellsbury, and then Judge and Stanton also in the outfield. Stanton's designated hitter, but he's playing right field right now. Judge was in right today, but they've had Judge in left, I think, or Stanton in left. They had Jace Peterson, who they called up in left today. But, and then, Didi at shortstop, he's batting 4 right now, and he's looked really good. Neil Walker had an off day today, but the Ronald Torreyes has had some key hits. He bats like 9th, which is really nice because he's kind of like more like if you get around that lineup and then we start off with Torreyes starting off, then you got Brett Gardner going second. That lineup is just kind of ridiculous to have to deal with. Tyler Wade has had a couple of good hits at the first of the year, and then Greg Bird's on the 10-day DL. He's been injured the last 2 seasons. If we can get him healthy, that's going to be great. Brandon Drury, who just came over from Arizona, we have him at third, and he's honestly been a pretty good player. I like what I've seen out of him so far. I liked him at Arizona, so I'm glad that we have him. He's on the 10-day DL with some migraine situation right now. And then obviously we have one of the best hitting catchers in Gary Sanchez. Austin Romine, a good backup. What's his name? Tyler Austin's our backup first baseman who's kind of playing right now. And then, talk about the pitching. We have really good relief pitching. Chapman's our closer, and then Servino has been absolutely lights out this year so far. I think he's going to have a really good year. He potentially could be the Cy Young winner in the AL. Sonny Gray, Tanaka, Sabathia, Montgomery. Those guys are all quality guys too. I really like the Yankees. The Yankees have kind of started slow in a sense, and sometimes they're so far in the season. Sometimes their offense shows up, sometimes it doesn't. The last couple of days, like today it did, but like yesterday and the day before it really didn't. But, for the most part, they've looked pretty good. And, they're always a team that's pretty good at making comebacks, later in innings, 7th, 8th, 9th inning type comebacks. So I'm pretty happy with the Yankees this year. I think the Yankees will win. I think the Yankees would have won last year if they didn't would have won their division last year if the little Apple Watch espionage bullshit that the Red Sox pulled wouldn't have fucking happened.